Smart Alec? Oh my god.
You stay closer. You sit right in front of me.
I'm good. This is the beautiful slides. I have lots of animals in this one. Yeah, I decided to, do the Instagram. Or I don't do TikTok. I don't like TikTok. TikTok's ridiculous.
Gotta hit the subway server.
Do any of you who makes TikTok videos yet? Anyone? Does anyone make TikTok videos? I know you do. Okay, let me ask you, do you like God's time to TikTok videos?
Jigsaw. I want to play a game. No, that's weird. You like this? Cannot do a monitor.
It is
Tell us closer. She said closer. If you want to get really close, we can sit on this.
I was having social media.
What?
I try to be cool. Let's see if I can turn this on without All right. Ooh, it worked. You guys, where is everybody? I'm so distressed. So I should do the most important stuff now so they miss it, right? Why would this not be? I'm so insulted. It's okay. You can tell them what they missed or not. You can say you're so lucky you didn't have to hear her talk. All right. Notice the cute dog. Can everybody go, aww? Okay, there's a few of those throughout the presentation. So whenever we get to a cute animal, can you do that, please? Okay, thank you. All right, and I don't think I've ever brought Adagio here. Is that true? All right, so this is my mascot, and he hangs up in my studio. His name is Adagio. Can you guys all say that? Adagio. Thank you. So he always holds this sign, right? What does it say? Yeah, so can you please remember Adagio when you're practicing? He has trouble sometimes. He's a little shy. Anyway, so think of Adagio when you're practicing. All right. Okay, just a little heads up. This is going to be, I always have so much to say. So just be prepared. I'm going to say a lot in the next hour. And some of it may go over your head, or you may tune out. That's okay, because I'm giving you lots of info. All of this is on my website. This whole presentation and the 2 previous presentations. So I want to encourage you at times, if you're getting frustrated when you're practicing, before you give up and go to Chick-fil-A or Sharky's to get a drink, I know some of you are underage, but we just won't go there. Open up my website, go to the resources tab, and click on one of these presentations. Doesn't matter which one, but it might just help to spark some ideas for how you can get out of your little frustration mode in the practice room, okay? So anyway, so bear with me this next hour. I don't know how much I'm gonna get through, but we're gonna try to get through as much. So we're gonna be talking and focusing on rhythm, and we're gonna be focusing on conducting and counting out loud, and Nick's favorite topic of all, I thought I would steal his thunder before he gets here. He comes in 2 weeks next Friday. I'm going to steal some of his thunder. So make sure you say that you loved my talk on metronomes, on anti-metronomes, okay? All right. So I want to start off with this quote that I found that I just love, especially because it comes from a drummer, an African drummer. Where I come from, we say that rhythm is the soul of life because the whole universe revolves around rhythm. And when we get out of rhythm, that's when we get into trouble. All right? That is so true in many ways. And I work with just about all of you. And I can say that one of all of our global issues that's the most difficult to tackle is rhythm. But here's the thing. Rhythm is truly the soul of life. It's the soul of music. And if you don't have a good sense of rhythm, if you're guessing on the rhythms you're playing, if you don't feel a groove, it kind of doesn't help your cause at all as a musician. You can be as musical as you can be, but if you don't have good rhythm, good pulse, all that type of thing, if you're guessing on rhythms, it's not going to be as strong a performance as you could give. And if you're in an ensemble, if you don't have good rhythm, if you're not independently good at it, then it's going to be difficult when you get in a big group. And if you are all not good at rhythm, oh Lord, I bet a lot of you have been in a situation, right? Where you go to a rehearsal and everybody sucks at rhythm. It is not fun, right? So let's all have a goal of getting better. Very good, thank you. So how often do you feel like you're in the rhythm or in the groove or in a groove when you're practicing or performing? You don't have to answer that right now, but answer that in your head. How often when you're practicing and performing do you feel like you get in a groove? And I don't just mean like oh, I'm doing well with practicing. It means that you are constantly conscientious of a pulse and that you are constantly feeling like the jazziness of what you're doing, all right? I know when I was in college, it just wasn't there. I had no idea what I was doing. And then I think some of you who are doing instruments or do a lot of classical music, you might ask, yeah, but I play classical and it's kind of stuffy and we don't have things like grooves because they didn't have grooves back then. That is so not true. Like Vivaldi, Telemann, all the Baroque people especially, you can find grooves in all of those pieces. So even like that famous Bach prelude, I want you guys to do me a favor. We'll see if you can do this. First, I want you to go ahead and you're gonna snap, if you can snap, on, let's see, beats. Okay, that's not bad, right? It's okay. Now, what I want, keep going, keep snapping. Good, you guys did good at that. Yeah, so what was I having you do, or what was I doing? Yeah, I was playing on the off, you were giving me off beats. And we're gonna talk about that in a little bit, but that to me, that feels like a groove. Much more so than when you do it on the beat. I mean, it's still a groove when it's on the beat, but it's not nearly as fun. So I do think if Bach were alive, and he might have done this when he was alive, I don't know. He might have thought on off beats. It keeps music moving forward. You guys didn't go at the picture of Bach. I'm kind of disappointed. Just joking. All right, so this is just a summation of what we're going to be talking about today. Rhythm building skills, all right? If you keep working on these, and I'm not saying just this year, I am still working on all of these things all the time, and I'm 52. I just revealed my age, remember that. So we're going to talk about understanding key concepts of rhythm that you must know moving forward. And it's okay if you don't know them yet, okay? I'm here to kind of try to pull everything together that you're learning in oral skills and your lessons and theory. Number 2, knowing how to solve rhythms, doing the math, so that you're not guessing. You should not walk out of this departmental today, be practicing and encounter a rhythm and continue to keep guessing. If you do and I catch yourself guessing, we're gonna have a talk. If you're confused with a rhythm, what do? You contact me immediately. You can even take a picture of the rhythm and text it to me. My number is everywhere on those postcards and on my door. All right? You cannot persist with not knowing a rhythm. I'm here to help. Number 3, counting out loud. Number 4, conducting and using your body. Number 5, feeling different streams of subdivisions. And 6, using the metronome effectively. That's the one we're going to make Nick jealous about. All right. So here we go. Hang on to your hats. understanding the key concepts. First, I want you to understand that rhythms are organized. All right? I think a lot of times we just look at a page with a lot of rhythms and we can freak out. Does anybody have that experience of looking at something and going, oh my God? Okay, good. I see lots of hands. Good. But they are best felt not note by note, but they are always organized within beats. You can tell this by beaming, how the composer beams the music, and that type of thing. So don't ever approach reading rhythms like flag by flag or note by note. For instance, like this is how a lot of times we see rhythm, right? Especially singers, because they often write it like that, because each note would get a syllable on it. I hate that. I wish they'd change it. So look at that and see if you can figure out what the rhythm is. Does anybody know what the time signature is even? Somebody tell me what the time signature is. Yeah. Yeah, it is 4/4. Yeah, good. So let's make it look a little bit nicer, right? Does that look a little bit better? This is like the eye doctors when they go, is this clear or is this clear? Yeah, so the second one is much better, right? So now you should be pretty easy. It should be easier to just sight read that rhythm. All right? So beaming is your friend. So if you do have a piece that has the separate beams, you can go ahead and on top of it or somewhere write it out the more optimal way. Second key concept, there are only so many rhythms that you're going to encounter in your life as a musician. There's not a lot, okay? So you would benefit today from learning and truly understanding and memorizing into your musical dictionary every rhythm you encounter. And again, I am not saying rhythm as in an 8th note or a 16th note. I'm talking about groups of notes that belong to a beat or 2 beats, that type of thing. Because you're going to start processing rhythms in beats or in 2 beats, because then you'll start to see the patterns better and it's easier to learn them. So take the time now. When you encounter a new to you rhythm, you're going to truly learn it so that when you see it again, you can instantly recall what it is. You don't have to sit there and think for a dotted 8th, 16th. Yum, bum, 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 bum. No, you'll just go yum, bum, 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 right? That's the goal. So as you see, I don't know why I put this in there. This is like me workshopping a piece. Oh, I know I did. Okay, so on the left is a Mozart fantasy. This is a piano piece. And I wrote down all of the different rhythms that occur in like a 10-page piece. That's it, right? But so often we sit in front of a 10-page piece and freak out. Don't. Take the time to just take a piece of paper as an experiment, write down all the rhythms that occur within a beat or 2 beats in this case. And then if you go through and learn each rhythm, before you even start to put the piece together, you're going to benefit so much, and there's going to be no guessing on that front. So then you can just learn the notes. You can figure out your fingerings, that type of thing. And then that's another piece over there. So 2 examples. And then another key concept is that rhythms can usually be solved with basic math. If you know 2, 4, 6, 8, who do we appreciate? No, you know, it's just very simple numbers that we have to deal with. If you can divide, let's see, I don't know, I'm not thinking of good examples, but it's just basic math. If you get into playing like some contemporary stuff where you've got 5 against 8 against 15, I don't know. There are ways to deal with that, and you can figure it out mathematically, but it's a pain in the rear. So come and see me if you have those pieces. And then, last but not least, my understanding key concepts is when working on a particular rhythm, start to learn to loop them when you're working on a rhythm to figure it out. Do you guys know what I mean by looping a rhythm? It just means repeating it over and over again. And this is the important part. When I ask people to do this, they will often add like negative time in between each repetition. Don't. It's a continuous loop, because that's what pulse is. That's what rhythm is. It's like your heartbeat, right? So for instance, in that example we saw earlier, that dotted rhythm, you would just do, oh yeah, that's right. So instead of just dum, 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 oh, I think that was good. Dum, dum, dum. No. So you're going to do dum, dum, da dum, dum, da dum, dum, da dum. All right? And you keep doing it, and while you're doing it, you're assessing how easy is it for me to do the rhythm? How is my body feeling? Is it calm? And am I getting into the groove? Am I feeling what the purpose of the rhythm is? Like for me, dotted rhythms, they can have a variety of meanings, but they definitely go forward, and they're quite stately. So I don't want sloppy dotted rhythms when I'm doing it. Yum, bum, 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 whatever. No. Yum, bum, ba bum, bum, ba bum. And I will loop that until I am convinced that I can do that. And my last step is, if I can close my eyes, not looking at that rhythm and reproduce it with that musicality, then I can stop. I'm closer to really internalizing that rhythm. All right, now we're moving on to the second topic of the day, which is knowing how to solve rhythms, right? It's fine and dandy to say, I want you to learn how to do them, but how do we do that? So some of this is going to be really basic for you, and you're going to say, roll your eyes and say, we learned that in class. Fine, I don't care. We have all different levels here. And I can tell you that I've had students of all levels be confused on some of this. So I want to just touch on the most important things right now. So you've got basic or simple meters, okay? That means that the bottom number is going to be like a 4 or a 2 usually, or sometimes it's usually 4. And that means when it's a 4 on the bottom, that means the quarter note gets the beat. When it's a 2 on the bottom, what gets the beat? Half note, exactly. Then what does the top note represent? How many beats per measure? Yes. And with basic and simple meter, it's very simple, right? You look at the top, you know how many beats you've got. You look at the bottom, and you know what note value gets the beat, okay? Not bad. And I did this little purple square. I think you'll see why. For me, those meters are very square, usually. You get 3, 4, okay, and then that's not quite as square, but. Then we've got compound meter. Sorry, I'm trying to, yeah, okay. With compound meter, it's a little bit different, right? It's important to note that when you look at a time signature for compound meter, it's different. You cannot look at the top number and say that's how many beats per measure there are. Does that surprise anybody that I'm saying that? Okay, good. Yes, you nod your head. Yeah, okay. Let me go on then. So in compound meter means it's a combination of different things. So it's more complex. The bottom number still represents, it kind of represents, to me, it represents the subdivision that is the most important subdivision. So we've got 8th notes when you've got an 8 on the bottom, 16th notes on the bottom ones, right? The number on top represents how many subdivisions are in the measure. But I encourage you not to feel that top number as the beat. If you divide the top number by 3, because in compound meter, as you see, it's a dotted note, right? So instead, you divide by 3 and you get how many of the big beat you're going to get, that big rhythmic value you're going to get. So in 3/8, divide the 3 by 3 and you get 1 beat per measure. So each beat is divided into 3/8 notes. Or, yeah, sorry. In 9/8, take the 9, divide by 3. How many beats are there per measure? 3. Good. And how many subdivisions are in each beat of compound meter? 3. I see a lot of people when they're marking up their music and working on compound meter, not do that. They're still seeing that each beat is divided into 2, which is more like basic simple. So remember, compound meter, things are divided into 3 initially from the big beat. Does that kind of make sense? Okay. So I'm glad that a lot of you are working on starting to figure out rhythms, but that's one of the biggest mistakes I'm seeing. Okay. And then another question to ask or to know is, what are the different subdivisions that underlie each beat in the different types of meters? So in basic simple, 2, 4, 3, 4, 4, 4, the main beat is usually, well, it is for 2, 4, 3, 4, 4, 4, a quarter note. And this is where the basic math comes in. So a quarter note divides into 2 eighth notes, right? And then each eighth note is divided into 2 sixteenths. Every one of those is going to then divide down into 2s, okay? Now, yeah, and then we've got, if you want to get fancy, the ones with half notes next to it. Compound meter, what is the main beat usually worth? Dotted quarter, right. How many eighth notes does that divide down into? 3, exactly. Then how many does each eighth note divide into when you go to sixteenths? Each eighth note. 2, exactly. So that's why it's a little bit different. You've got, first it divides down into 3, and then it divides down into 2. All right, so just keep all of that in mind. All right. Okay. All right, we're going to do a little bit of a little experiment here. So we're going to work on a couple of these rhythms. I'm trying to decide which one. I want to do this bottom one on this side first. And what we're going to do, oh, there's not many people here. Okay, so I want this side of the room, you're going to clap quarter notes or snap quarter notes. But one sec, I'll give you the tempo in a sec. And then I want this side in the front to do eighth notes along with their quarter notes. And then I want the back of the people, you guys are going to do the rhythm that's written. Okay, actually, I'm thinking here. Ugh. I actually want sixteenths too. Okay, let's do Elena up. Over here, you're going to do sixteenths. Then you guys are going to do eighths, quarters, rhythm. Okay, so I want to start with the quarter notes, please. So let's see. This is the beat. Yeah. Don't speed up, please. Just chill. Good. Okay. Did I say eighth notes? Who's eighth notes? Okay, eighth notes. Can you add? You have to listen to each other. Sixteenths, keep going. Loud. Don't rush, listen. Okay, rhythm people, ready, go. Aiden, what are you doing? Okay, keep it going. Ready, go. We're doing that, yeah. There we go, okay. Keep going, keep going, sorry. Not the rhythm people, stop. Okay, 16th, stop and join the eighth note people. You guys are gonna bring in that rhythm again, looping it. Ready, go. Okay, rhythm people stop, everybody keep going. Eighth notes, join the quarter notes. You guys are gonna bring in the rhythm. Ready, go. Stop. Now, rhythm people, was it hard to do the rhythm when you were only getting the quarter note beat? No, right? Did you still kind of hear and feel in your body the 16ths and the 8th notes that you had underlying you the first couple of times? Good. That's the type of work that I'm talking about in terms of figuring out rhythms. I encourage you, like we just did, to start out figuring out a rhythm and feeling the smallest subdivision that you need in order to reproduce the rhythm accurately and confidently. But then wean yourself away from that. Then go to smaller or longer subdivisions. So go from 16ths to feeling 8th notes and feeling how that rhythm feels against those 8th notes. Then back up and feel that rhythm and get into the groove of the rhythm with only feeling the beat. All right? Now I know a lot of people solve rhythms this way by turning on the metronome, playing the subdivisions. I know, because I listen to you guys practice, that sometimes those subdivisions keep going in the practice room with the metronome up until the time you perform. That is not learning a rhythm. That is not learning how to feel the groove of a rhythm. So I want you guys to start to understand rhythms by being able to reproduce them with just the beat. All right? And that might be different for some. And you would do the same thing for compound meter, right? Same idea. All right, some people have pieces with crazy, crazy meters, right? Jessica, does this look familiar? Sound familiar? So they call it mixed meters a lot. I don't know. It's the same idea. So we've got 5/8 notes per measure, right? And 5/8. But do I feel, it's hard because you can't divide that by 3, obviously. So we're not going to do fractions. That's way too hard math. So what I do and what composers usually do is they're dividing that odd number into 2 plus 3 or 3 plus 2 or 4 plus 1. That's less common, but Jessica did discover that in her piece the other day. So you never know. And then you get to feel the groove of what those different combinations feels like. For instance, okay, if you've got 5/8 that's divided 2 plus 3, and I like having a triangle. I even write triangles underneath groups of 3 in my music, because it feels different. So, bum, 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 bum. Can you do that with me? So, 2, 3, yum, bum, 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 yum, bum, 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 yum, bum. Good. Do you feel how that second beat has a little hang time to it, right? Yum, bum, 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 bum. Then, if you can start to feel that and conduct it, I'm still hearing those 8 notes in my head. Feeling that and being able to conduct that helps you playing those pieces. If you try to feel a piece in 5/8 or 7/16, yum bum 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 bum, you can get lost. It's like being in a really crowded forest with way too many trees and you're just hitting them. Don't do that and it will slow you down. And usually pieces like this are fast. So just a way to look at them, okay? Look for how it's divided, and you can often look at how the composer beams the music to know. Here's an example. This is Jessica's piece that we're working on. And this part is actually fairly straightforward. So as you see, the composer is sticking with 3 plus 3 plus 4 in this case. Or you could see it as 3 plus 3 plus 2 plus 2. But I like 4 because it's fast. So yum bum 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 bum. Can you do that with me? Bum 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 bum. Yeah, and when you're doing that exercise, accent vocally the first of every grouping. Yum bum 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 bum. So then when you get it fast, yum bum 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 bum. That has so much energy to it, right? Versus yum bum 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 bum. Ah, you know, you'll stumble. So doing this type of seeing that type of meter like that will help you be anchored and you'll be tethered to the meter. This was another section of Jessica's. It's your piece now, Jessica. This is in 5/8, and this is the section where it's actually not all that clear how the composer is dividing it. Because if you look at the beaming, it doesn't really help much. So poor Jessica is just having to go through, and I said, you just have to decide for yourself. And she, I think, is deciding based on the musicality, like what sounds best, right? On how you're dividing it. The other thing you can do is if there's a piano part, look at the piano part as well. And in fact, you should. Because if you make a determination in a complex piece like this without looking at the piano, if the piano naturally is leaning towards one way of dividing it, and you're going against it, that can make it more difficult. So you just have to keep it in mind. That doesn't mean you have to be feeling the same division. Some composers like that kind of tug of war between the instruments, but you must look and investigate and ask those questions. Don't just, it's very tempting in a piece like this to just go beat by beat, but then you lose the musicality. And you can, that's when we make rhythmic errors, then I have to cover your butts, and I really don't like to do that. All right? And I can promise you that I can tell exactly what type of work you have done rhythmically when you come to rehearse with me. But I'm not mean. I'm always there to help. So I don't mean to say that to scare the daylights out of you. All right. We're doing well. Third thing, counting out loud. This can be kind of tricky, especially if you sing or you play an instrument into which you blow, right? You can't count out loud while you're blowing into your instrument or singing. What can you do instead? Tap your foot for the beats. Yes, you could do that. You could do the snapping, which we're going to talk about in a sec. My main point right now at this moment is do not give me that excuse. If you play a brass wind instrument or you sing and you say, I can't count out loud to figure out rhythms because I can't. No. You know what I'm going to make you do. I'll make you do silly exercises. Okay. Counting out loud, whether it's while you're playing your instrument, oh, there's a typo, or while clapping the rhythm, it will A, tether you to the pulse of the music. And it gives you little anchors at each downbeat. That is very helpful when you get to play with somebody else. If everyone in your little group, or when you come to play with me, if you all know exactly where each downbeat is, then it's like you click into place. And notice I'm saying downbeat, especially. I like to feel the bigger beats because it's not as micromanagey. So as long as you and I, or you and your colleagues are feeling the downbeat and you're keeping a steady pulse, you will hang together much better and be able to slip into a universal groove, okay? This also helps you prevent you from rushing ahead, slowing down, or being too erratic with your tempo. If you're really listening to your counting, the counting should just be like, you know those heartbeat monitors? With a chirp, boom, chirp, boom, right? It should be even or else you're in trouble. And that's what your counting should be. Your counting should be rock solid and you put the rhythm on top. The rhythm should not, the pulse and the counting should not vary based on how well you know your rhythm. Does that make sense? Third thing, it helps you understand the phrasing and most importantly, the words of the music and which words are the most important in your music. Almost always, music is latched to those downbeats. Now, sometimes when the music is really cool, you'll have accents on different beats. But as long as you realize that that's unusual and cool, then you're fine. And that's what makes the music really cool and exciting and interesting, because it's unexpected. But always start with what's on the downbeat and feel anchored on the downbeats. Doing the counting out loud also helps you to see beyond the note to note. So you're seeing phrasing and patterns more easily. Again, it's that concept of being in a very crowded forest with way too many trees and you have no idea where you're going in that forest. Step back, and you're feeling those big beats, and everything will start to fall into place better. Your body will feel more relaxed. It's a very good thing. Okay, counting out loud how-tos. So on the left, well, what I want you to do, I want you to tell me what's the difference between what I want you to do and what I don't want you to do. Raise your hand if you have an idea of what's different between those two ways of counting out loud. Colin.
There's not, like you're not marking out all of the ands and uhs. You're just finding the bigger beats in.
Very good, thank you. You all heard that? Yeah, so it's only counting the big beats. So do you see now, flash back to the beginning of the presentation when we did that experiment about finally getting that rhythm to the place where you could, the back people could do that rhythm with only the beats being counted underneath them. So that's why I want you to get to know rhythms that well so that you can count out loud with only counting the beats. The problem with what's on the right is that a lot of times what I find with students is that when you go in and out of doing the subdivisions as well, you can actually end up messing yourself up because you pull yourself out of what that pulse is, what that quarter note pulse is. So then all of a sudden you might inadvertently do things twice as fast or twice as slow because you've gone to a different level of the beat. It's not really a beat, it's a subdivision. So it's better to just stay holding on to the main pulse. Don't go in and out with your counting, all right? If you have to stop in the middle of doing something and work out that rhythm again and do some subdivision work until you can feel the groove of the rhythm, so be it. Then go back till you can count it with the big beats. Yes?
What if you count the whole bar as 16ths? Is that okay?
What do you mean by that?
Like instead of saying 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and if you say 1 and a 2 and a 3
Nope,
and
absolutely not.
the bar.
Nope. You figure out the rhythm first within the context of the quarter note. If you do feel the subdivisions too much like that and count it, you're going to lose the musicality of it. And that's what's going to be, your body is going to associate with that rhythm 1 and a 2 and a. And especially if it's a faster piece or if you want to do it musically, it's going to be very hard because you've ingrained 1 da 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 instead of yep dum ba bum ba bum. It just makes it less mechanical and robotic. Does that make sense? So learn the rhythm first, and then, yeah, that's what I would say. Never, never, ever count with ands, ever again. I say that as strongly as Nick says don't ever practice with the metronome, and I still don't agree totally with the totally no metronome. Okay, that's okay. All right, another nice quote here. Our bodies like rhythm, and our minds like melody and harmony. So actually, this is a great one to do in relation to your question. So yes, our brain loves that 1 and a 2 and a. It's very analytical and it makes us feel safe and like we know we're getting it right, right? But to me, it doesn't touch on what feeds our mind. Yeah, what is it? Oh, I was doing it reversed, sorry. Our bodies like rhythm and our minds like melody and harmony. So now I'm totally stumped myself trying to connect it with your thought, but anyway, I want us, I think the main point I put that in there is because I want you to start to feel rhythm more in your body. It's really important to do that. There's this kinesthetic thing that happens, like how many people have been involved in a drum circle? Probably a lot of people in here, right? Isn't it kind of a magical thing when you do them? Like there's just something about feeling the rhythm in your body and the vibrations and stuff that I think is really cool. Little side story. I sucked at rhythm until I was working at Virginia Tech. This is like when I was in my 40s, okay? Late 30s, 40s. And my husband gave a concert that he was a singer, And he did some jazz stuff, he did Baroque, and he did classical. So I did the classical stuff with him, or the Romantic era. A friend of mine did harpsichord with him, and then we had a jazz band. So we had a drummer, right? So the drum set was like right behind me for that concert. And so I was sitting, and we were all on stage the whole time. And when he did the jazz stuff, and I had that drum set right behind me, I felt the beat through my whole body, and it was a really good trap player. And it was then that I was like, oh my gosh, I need to be my own rhythm section. I need to feel so confident, just like this drummer behind me, of where those beats are. I need to feel it in my body, and that's kind of what got me really working hard on rhythm and pulse for myself. So anyway, that's too long to talk about that quote. Jessica, did you have a question? Okay. So conducting, we're going to talk now about conducting, because that's a way of putting all of these concepts into your body. All right? Now, for beginners who have not taken a class where you've learned to conduct, I love what I call snap conducting, which is simply a very fluid up and down, and you snap on the bottom, and that's the downbeat on the bottom. And it also gives you an oral thing to connect with the physical, right? And the downbeat goes with gravity all the time. That's why downbeats are marvelous things and unify us and anchor us. So you can just do that for every beat of a measure. That works fine. Sometimes I do this a lot when I'm practicing. Right? So you can do that as a pianist, or you can count out loud too. But it's really good to do. Learn the conducting pattern for 2 beats, 3 beats, and 4 beats as a next step. I'm not going to take the time to do that now. You can Google it or ask somebody if you don't already know it. But the most important thing when you're doing that type of conducting is, like, pay attention to your form. That downbeat should be just as lovely as it is when you do the snap conducting, with that weight and a clear point. That's the beat. I conduct backwards, sorry. But so you want to make sure that each beat has a clear thing. The last beat of a measure is always up, and that's important to remember. That's why it's called an upbeat. Downbeat, upbeat. And the upbeat should feel different than the downbeat. So just be mindful of that. Because beats all have different purposes. I should add that there. Notice how strong, powerful, and anchored the downbeat is and how much lighter the upbeat is. That's what I just said. When you get the hand of conducting, conduct and sing or vocalize the rhythms of your piece. And pay attention to the groove of the rhythms that exist in larger chunks rather than note by note. Okay? So again, if you're starting to learn rhythms in beats and in groups of beats, that'll be easier to do. Start to feel the groove in connection with conducting. All right. The next topic is feeling different streams of subdivisions. We've already touched on this, right? But I want to take it a little bit of a step further. So we already know we have different layers of subdivisions that underlie any piece of music that you're doing. And we always end up with 16th notes as like one of the smaller subdivisions. I don't know if this graphic is going to make any sense, but whenever I'm playing, I am feeling all those different subdivisions at different times based on the music and what I'm feeling about the piece. So there's that rhythm we did at the beginning up on the top. And this is supposed to look like water. Do you kind of see that? Different waves. I like to think of different waves. And then the first way of feeling it, the subdivision, is just those quarter notes, which are the beat. Then the layer underneath are the 8th notes. The layer underneath are the 16ths. So most of the time I'm feeling the biggest beat I can. Sometimes it might even be a half note. But then in some instances, I like to feel the 16th notes but I'm not counting 16th notes, but they're there. So just start to be aware and be able to kind of shift internally, feeling and being aware of the different subdivision streams underneath. Kind of a weird concept. Oh, okay. So now I just have a fun visual. I put this together. Oh, this should have had sound. Shoot, I wish I was good at sound effects. I put this together and I kind of think it's funny, but I don't think it's going to work. Should I show it to you anyway or not? Because then you can, again, annoy Nick. Are you ready? Okay, so you guys can make the tick-tock of the metronome, okay? All right, here we go. Oh, it's hard to see. Shoot. Wait for it, wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. All right. Can you please give him a hard time? I was actually going to have that at the Spooktacular, and he was like so finicky. He's like, the picture isn't, I don't like the picture of me. I want it to be more professional, so no, please don't use it. Anyways, please give him a hard time. Say you loved the video of him. Freak him out a little bit. All right, so we're going to talk about the metronome. Right now, this is perfect. Metronomes can be helpful. They can be. All right, here's how they can be helpful. To get an idea of what the composer was thinking. You know, at the beginning of most pieces, it gives you a metronome indication, right? Okay, so that helps you so you know if it's going to be really slow, fast, whatever. You get a ballpark idea of what the composer wants. But let me tell you a quick little story. It's not always true. First of all, like Beethoven's metronome, there's this whole debate about Beethoven's metronome. Apparently, it wasn't the same speed as the metronomes we have today. So there's a whole slew of arguments online about how fast you're supposed to play Beethoven stuff. Okay, so there's an example of, well, you can't totally count on the metronome marking. Sometimes the metronome markings are done by editors, so who knows? It's the editor's preference. And you don't know who stated the metronome marking. Then there's the story of Poulenc. Have you heard of the French composer Francis Poulenc? So he was notorious, his fast movements are like wickedly fast. You look at the number and I always just want to cry. I'm like, are you serious? What are you thinking? Well, it turns out that Poulenc hated, like his publishers would come to him and say, you need to put metronome markings so that we can publish this with metronome markings. He hated doing that, so he didn't. He just came up with numbers and put them had the publisher print them that way. All right, so don't just use it as a guide. What's more important, there are other things to keep into consideration. How well you can play it at that tempo, what you think musically about the piece. There's so many other factors that come into play. But use it as a guide, okay, sparingly. It's also helpful to relay to another colleague that you're going to play with about how fast you want to play it, okay? It's good to prepare before you get together. To help you gain an internal sense of pulse while working on counting out loud and conducting. What I mean by this is, if you're new to counting out loud, oftentimes it's an absolute mess. I have you guys do it in my studio, and sometimes I'm like, oh no, this is not gonna work, because your counting will be haphazard at first. That's normal. So set that metronome that's what you count with to keep the beat. If you do some work that way for a couple weeks, pretty soon you won't need that metronome to keep you steady when you're counting, all right? But it's good for that. To assist with feeling the bigger beats of the measure. So for example, I've mentioned several times that I like to feel the bigger beats and not be so microscopic. So like with this passage I was just playing with 16ths, some people would have the metronome do 8th notes. It makes me feel like an exercise, so let's try quarter notes. A little bit better. I can kind of put an anchor on the beginning of each group of 16ths. And that feels a little bit better. Let me try half notes. What would be next? Whole notes. Did it sound different musically when I shifted, feeling the different note values for the beats? How so? Can someone put into words what was different? Serenity. More fluid. Perfect. To me, that's more musical, right? So that's why it's good to be able to do that. And if you need the metronome to help you with that, great. Metronomes are also good for finding out which are the spots where you tend to speed up and slow down, all right? I use a really funky method, which we did with the Bach earlier. I like to set it on the off beats. So, it's even lighter to me when I do it that way. The other reason I like practicing with the metronome beating on offbeats is because then it makes you do the downbeats and the bigger beats. And that will prove to yourself that you do not need a metronome to do that for you. Because what also happens is if you tend to do the metronome on the big beats, you can easily rush through the notes that are right after, that are in between. And then you end up waiting at the end, right before the next beat, and you wait for the metronome to click for beat 3, right? I don't know if I can reproduce that, but let's see. Oh no, I can't do it. So it's a little bit more halted. It's harder to, I don't know, you're just listening for the metronome. And what you don't want is to be used to listening to the metronome. Because here's a question. When you go on to stage, are you going to have a metronome? And if you've practiced with the metronome your entire time, especially on subdivisions and stuff like that, you're going to get on stage and feel naked. And you already feel naked as it is. Do not make that even harder for yourself. Oh, there was my piece. Okay. Metronomes can be a crutch when used for too long to give you the subdivisions of the beat in order to play tricky rhythms. We've already kind of touched on this. So move as quickly as you can to understanding the rhythms and feeling them as the groove that they are, while feeling the bigger beats. It can also be a crutch, in my opinion, if you use it to find the correct tempo every time you go to play your piece. So many people, I even had, oh my gosh, I played for this young guy at a competition, right? He was a violinist. I will never play with him again. He came to me and he said, I need you to play it at 132 for each quarter, for the quarter note beat. And I looked at him, I'm like, buddy, I'm not gonna have a metronome up there on stage. This was actually at the rehearsal. He was so mad at me. And he couldn't even play it at 132, honestly. So at the end of the rehearsal, he said, so are you gonna play it at 132 at the competition? I said, are you gonna play it cleanly at 132? And he said, I said, I will play it at 132 if when you come back and we warm up for the competition, if you can play it cleanly at 132. Granted, I was a little bit of a, He came to the competition and he brought me a metronome. And he said, Mrs. Sipes, I want you to put this it's all set to 132. I want you to put it on the music rack. And before you start your introduction, I want you to turn on the metronome. I was so moved. I said, nope. He went and complained, and it was this big to-do. So we get to the performance. It was a concert, right? And he looked at me, the metronome was there, and I just started at a slower tempo because he hadn't practiced it the way I asked, and it was still messy and not clean. And I didn't think that served him well, plus I was just mad. And so I played kind of slowly, and then guess what he did when he came in? He took it like a bat out of hell. And do you think he won? Do you think I heard from the parents? Yes. Anyway. Okay, so metronomes are not on stage. So it behooves you to practice figuring out what tempo you want to play the piece at without having to find the exact number on the metronome every time. And we do that especially by looking at like the most difficult passages with the fastest notes. That's sometimes a good way to do it. And feel in your body, figure out what that tempo needs to be. And then practice taking that tempo, finding that tempo, and then starting at the beginning at that tempo. And kind of go back and forth till you make sure that you know what tempo you want that piece to be. Then when you get together with the pianist, you can say, you can go to that difficult passage and say, I need it at this tempo, more or less. This is how fast, this is the groove I get in this passage. That, I love it when people do that, because I'm like, oh, I get that, I get the groove thing, yeah. All right, you need those 16ths to flow at that tempo, got it. Much better than telling me to play it at 132. So the goals with the metronome are to become your own metronome with a rock-solid sense of pulse. And again, especially when you start shifting that metronome to be beating bigger and bigger pulses, that means it's up to you to do the other pulses in between. And when you start to realize that you are capable of being your own rhythm section and keeping a steady pulse, you will be so much more confident. Another goal is to get to know the groove and purpose of any rhythm you have to play. Each individual rhythm has a different purpose. Some of them are just kind of static. Some of them move forward. Some of them are syncopated and groovy and kind of make you feel a little bit on edge so that when you do get to play on the downbeat, you're like, ah, that feels good. So start to be aware of all that stuff. And then get to know the groove and quality of each meter. Let me tell you, you guys are really bad at 3/4. Really bad at 3 beats per measure. Everybody. Right? So when you have a piece in 3/4, please be really mindful of this. It's, you know, fuddy-duddy. We don't waltz anymore. No pop music really is in 3/4. There's a couple exceptions. So get to understand the groove of and feel of 3/4. Final words about metronomes, then I'll let you go. I encourage you to not depend on nudging the tempo up gradually to increase the speed of your piece. Now, this might be controversial to some teachers, and I'll argue with anybody that you send my way. It takes too much time, and when you spend too much time in those slow areas, especially because we get scared of, like, we tend to fall apart as we get faster, you're going to be stuck in slow land for a while. And when we get stuck in slow land, we can be doing technical things that are extraneous or too much movement, not as efficient. So and it will never work to do it that way when you're playing it at a fast tempo. So I do a lot of slow practice, thanks to Adagio. But I alternate, so I'll do a lot of slow practice to make sure I know what I'm doing and I know what my body's doing, but then I'll quickly switch to a faster tempo so I can see if that will be efficient at that faster tempo. All right, but I do not do slow things on the metronome. The other thing I don't like about that nudging up on the metronome is you can tend to turn off your brain and your ears and it gets unmusical. It just gets to be repetitions. Second thing, slow practice can be good. Oh, I just talked about this. Don't dwell in slow practice land. And then have the metronome click on off beats rather than the main beats. This is your ultimate test. Oh, I already did that. That was an example of me doing the off beats for that piano piece. And then my last quote, thank you. There is music wherever there is rhythm, as there is life wherever there is a pulse. I love that quote. And that was said by Igor Stravinsky, the famous composer. Okay, and he's like, his music is amazing with rhythm. I always tell pianists, and especially collaborators such as myself, that we're basically BSing our way through a lot of performances. So a lot of times, I don't care what notes I play, but you better believe that my main focus is pulse and rhythm. If you've got those things down and dependable, you can get away with murder in terms of notes. Because I think the thing that really rules music is rhythm and pulse. That's why it behooves you to start figuring this out now, and I am here to help with that, all right? So I want you to have this stuck in your head in an annoying way. If you are in the practice room from here on out this year, and you are struggling with the rhythm or feeling the pulse, if you do not come, I want you to picture me or adagio, and I want you to say, I'm gonna contact Professor Sipes. I'm gonna sign up for a time. Promise? Thank you, Dr. Cataldi. I'll look forward to seeing you. All right, thanks everybody. Go forth.